Now we will check in on the numbers from New Hampshire. This race has been called just minutes ago from the Associated Press. Former Senator Kelly Ayotte projected to win over former Manchester Mayor Joyce Craig. This really considered the closest contest for governor in the country. And the numbers here are tight, 52% in Kelly Ayotte's favor to Joyce Craig's 46%. We are now joined by Dr. Nathan Shrader, political science professor at New England College tonight. He is one of our standby poli-sci gurus tonight, and I'm glad, Dr. Shrader, you are with us again tonight. Let's talk about this governor's race. Again, Kelly Ayotte has been campaigning with Governor Chris Sununu. He just tweeted, "Congratulations, Governor-elect Kelly Ayotte, a true New Hampshire campaign that won the New Hampshire way." What did you expect tonight when it came to this race?
Well, look, I think we expected a close race, but let me tell you, one of the things that's interesting here is that Kelly Ayotte was able to hitch her political wagon simultaneously to Donald Trump, who was unfairly unpopular in this state, and Chris Sununu, who is very popular in the state in general among the voters, and not suffer any consequences for it. She managed to endorse and support Donald Trump, something she did not do 6 years ago when she lost her U.S. Senate reelection bid. She embraced Trump this time. She also embraced Sununu this time. So I think there were a lot of folks out there, including myself, who thought there might be some blowback from that from voters, seeing her simultaneously trying to have it both ways, meaning with the MAGA wing of the Republican Party and with in New Hampshire, the Sununu branded wing of the party that's a little less MAGA-like. But what happened here tonight was the voters of New Hampshire doing what they seem to do every couple of years, is a lot of ticket splitting. And by that, I mean you had voters all over the state going in and voting for Vice President Harris for the presidential race, but then they drop down their ballot and they vote Democratic in the congressional races because both of those races look like they're going to go Democratic, but then they go Republican in the race for governor. So that pattern is not new to New Hampshire, but that pattern is just one that is holding again this time around.
And let's talk about ticket splitting, because we did see this even in Dixville Notch last night. When it comes to the presidential race, Kamala Harris ahead 52% right now in New Hampshire to Trump's 47%. New Hampshire has backed Democrats in 7 of the last 8 presidential elections. What are you looking for here when it comes to the vote margins, perhaps, in this race?
Well, to be honest with you, I actually thought she was, and again, those numbers aren't the final numbers, but it's a 4-point race right now. She's going to win New Hampshire, but I think she should have, Vice President Harris, that is going to win New Hampshire, but I think she should have won it by a lot more than she is right now, given the fact that Donald Trump has never won here. And that right in the last check I did, both the Democratic U.S. House candidates, Chris Pappas in CD1 and Maggie Goodlander in CD2, they're in double digits ahead of their Republican opponents. So it's an interesting thing when you see the congressional, the U.S. House candidates in the state running ahead of the presidential candidate in that way. I'm not so sure that that's typically what we'd see in the country these days.
Let's talk about gender if we can. I feel like on the national scale, a lot of pundits have been talking about this gender gap over the past few weeks. Are you expecting it to be a major focus of this presidential race when all is said and done?
Oh, most definitely. And let me tie that into the New Hampshire governor's race, if I may. If you're watching any of the advertising on television over the last 2 months, any of the advertising coming into the mailboxes through the direct mail pieces that was getting dozens of at a time here, and the web ads, the Democratic candidate Joyce Craig's campaign, it felt at times like a single issue campaign. They were running on abortion, and they were running on Joyce Craig's support for abortion rights, accusing Kelly Ayotte of being insufficiently for abortion rights. Meanwhile, Kelly Ayotte was trying to counter that by saying she's not going to make any changes to the state's current abortion law. So um, that I think reflected what the Democrats hoped to exploit was this gender gap, hoping to drive out as many pro-choice women as possible for the Democratic candidate. But that just didn't work here. And I think what we're going to, when we look back at it, we're going to say, what did Joyce Craig and the Democratic campaign go? Where did it go wrong in New Hampshire? It was almost solely focused on the issue of abortion to the detriment of most every other issue that was on the minds of the voters.
But let's talk about women. Women have basically ruled the congressional delegation for a while. And now there was going to be already, but there will definitely be a woman governor in Concord as well. What does this say about New Hampshire and maybe, for New England?
Look, that is a fantastic question because look, there are some states in the country where they've still never elected a woman to a statewide office. They've never elected a woman to certain congressional districts. And here in New Hampshire, we're going to go into the new year with a woman governor who's a Republican. One of our both U.S. senators are Democratic women, and one of our two U.S. House members will be a Democratic woman, and Maggie Goodlander. So that I think what it tells us is New Hampshire voters they don't see there's not a voter bias in this state towards vote women who are Republicans or Democratic candidates, and that I think is something that voters in other states that are not as open to electing women to executive level positions within a state, congressional or senatorial level positions in the state. New Hampshire is way ahead of their peers in some of those areas.
Dr. Shrader, I do want to talk about the 2nd Congressional District. We'll do that when we see you at 11 o'clock over on ABC 22. I really appreciate your time right now at 10 o'clock. Thank you so much.
All right, I'll see you in a little while.
Thank you. And we will be right back here on Fox 44.